Hello everyone, this is Body Club Binks and welcome to Let's Play 999. In the last episode we were working in the puzzle in the library, and unfortunately it was taking me a long time just to find one pop-up book. So we ended up looking through the whole library and talking about a lot of very nerdy stuff. And in the end we finally confronted Snake, and now we're getting an explanation from him. Alright. To be honest, the explanation is quite simple. Zero told me not to. I had little choice. He didn't walk up and tell me, of course. He gave me a message engraved on a card. Snake reached into his sleeve and pulled out a small, stiff piece of paper. It looked a good deal like the one he'd shown everyone on the central staircase. So you had 2 cards. No, only 1. Huh? What do you mean? I thought that card just had some rules for the nonary game on it. Yes, it did. And those were the rules I read you. However, they were not the only thing on the card. There was something I didn't read. Well, perhaps I should say there was something I couldn't read. And that was... Tell no one of the events that took place 9 years ago. Tell and I activate your sister's detonator. Oh. Oh. Well, Snake nodded. Well, what about Clover? Did she get a message from Zero too? I don't believe she did. But doesn't it strike you as strange that Zero would shut my mouth, but not hers? Yeah, that does seem a little weird. Very weird, actually. To be on the safe side, however, I told her it was best not to tell anyone. Still, apparently she told you. That girl. What's wrong with her telling me? I figured some stuff out with the things she told me. I mean, it looks like the whole activate her detonator thing was just a bluff. She's prancing around downstairs, happy as a clam now that you're back. Snake glanced down at Clover and Seven, examining one of the bookshelves. That's weird that he glances down when he's not really looking. But I guess he looks in the direction of them, even though he can't see. That's very true. I've decided I can trust you. I've decided to tell you the truth. The chance that Santa is Zero is very high. I feel I can assume Santa doesn't have the time to observe us at the moment. And at any rate, even if he were, I very much doubt he would kill us. Why not? Clover told me about the 4-leaf clover, about the words. If he knew about that, then he was in my group during the first experiment. I'm sure of it. He wouldn't kill us. And yet he shot at Clover's feet and he made her very upset, because I'm sure she was thinking the same thing. No matter what the situation was. Snake paused and cocked his head, as though he was listening to something very far away. I wonder how close in age Snake and Clover are, and I wonder how close in age Snake and Santa are. Pretty curious. And they both have little sisters. Well, we know Santa's sister died. His face looked dark, as though something was weighing on him. Hey, Snake. Junpei wasn't quite sure what to say. Snake turned and looked at him. Yes, I know. You want to know what happened during the experiment. Yeah. How much do you know? Junpei relayed to Snake everything Clover had told him. The morphogenetic field and the experiments 9 years prior that had dealt with it. Go play with a toy, baby. Okay. How the experiment had taken place simultaneously at 2 locations, one being the ship and the other being a building in Nevada. How they'd played the nonary game. He told him everything. And finally, he told him how a girl had died during the experiment. "Oh, she told you all that, did she?" Snake looked down. His face was tight. A slight tremor shook his body, and he tried to hide it. He was putting on a good front, but even Junpei could tell that he was holding back something deep and powerful. He made as if to brush something from his face and looked up at Junpei. "At any rate, I now know how much you've learned. All that remains for us to determine is who did this and why, right?" "Yes. Can you tell me what happened?" Snake nodded slowly. "The people who organized the initial experiment were from a company called Cradle Pharmaceutical. There were 4 of them running the show. A lot of this is going to be stuff we kind of already know based on the last ending, but it's a different perspective and it might have some additional stuff, so hang in there." Gentaru... I'm trying to pronounce it like Snake would. "Gentaru Hongo, Nagisa Nijisaki, Teruaki Kubota, Kagichika Musashido." Huh. We already know who Hongo is, although here they look much younger. Hongo was the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceutical. Nijisaki was his right-hand man and did the lion's share of the planning. Kubota led the company's research and development division. Musashido was the majority stockholder. It was these 4 people who planned the initial experiment. Let me simplify it for you. Hongo designed it, and Nijisaki put it all together. Kubota developed the technology required, and Musashido provided the cash. So it's Hongo, Nijisaki, Kubota, and Musashido. Junpei couldn't shake the sense that he had heard those 4 names somewhere before. Of course, more than 4 people were required to conduct an experiment of this scale. To that end, they organized a top-secret team to assist them with their research. All in all, they gathered 10 people or so. Those 10 completed their team, and they were able to begin the project. They named it the Nonary Project. Much like the Nonary game. Wah. Doggy, will you stop crying so much? He's so needy. The purpose of the experiment was to research the prospect of controlling a human mind through sheer will. The vessel, I suppose you could say, for this control was the morphogenetic field. Why did the glycerin suddenly begin to crystallize? Why did the crystal structure of EDT undergo a sudden change? We've heard about this before. Why did the rats improve their puzzle-solving skills with each generation? Everything we're hearing is stuff we've heard before. That's so interesting. Experiments with humans produced the same results. The more people who knew the answer to a question, the more people there were who could answer correctly without having seen the problem before. Why? How? The answer is that the shape of the answer has been stored in a field invisible to the naked eye. And through that field, the resonant event transmits information related to that answer. Oh boy. Sometimes this can go a little bit over your head, but with everything that they've explained through examples, that should help a little. That's essentially the idea behind morphogenetic fields. But that's just a theory. A game theory! Oh, okay, sorry. I don't want to get sued. But that's just a theory. Can't bring yourself to believe it? Not really. Let's say someone killed another person because the devil told them to do it. Whether the devil exists or not has no relevance to the murderer. They believe the devil exists. Whether or not he does is immaterial. So what matters here is that Hongo believed in the morphogenetic field. Snake nodded. But I still don't get it. You said they wanted to figure out how to control people, right? That is what you were saying? Yes. So how are they going to do that with the morphogenetic field? I'll keep it simple. Let's suppose 10,000 people have solved a certain problem. The chance of you knowing that answer, even if no one has told you, will go up. Let's have another example, shall we? Say 1,000,000 people were to do a handstand right now. Tomorrow, the chances of you doing a handstand would be higher, even if you had heard nothing of this hypothetical mass handstanding. Mankind's thought process and actions are all part of a resonant event. All of the resonant events encoded in the fields are projected onto you. Of course, this assumes you believe in this theory. Do you follow so far? Yeah. But let's say, hypothetically, that there was a person who had the same effect as those millions of people. What would happen? If that one person were to do a handstand, other people would find themselves wanting to do handstands as well. Oh, that's spooky. Can you imagine what a person with powers like that would be able to do? Come on, there's no way. I'm not done. Imagine another scenario. Imagine another person. This is an ordinary person. Let's say he does a handstand. What if there was someone who could grab the resonant event he created by doing that and use it to make other people do handstands? What would happen then? A person who has the power to write to the field and someone who can read from the same. You could think of them as the writer and the reader, not reader, or the transmitter and the receiver. What would the world be like if there were people with abilities like these? It'd be like X-Men, which is not exactly a good world. They have a lot of issues they gotta deal with. Junpei thought about it for a moment. So the transmitter's resonant event can be transmitted through the field and sent to the receiver. And then the transmitter can control the receiver however they wish. That's what you're saying, right? Yes, close enough at least. Come on, that's just crazy. Well, if you want to prove that, then you'll have to test it first. At least that was how they thought. That was why they decided to do their experiment. That was how the Nonary project began. Snake suddenly looked very serious. Junpei, have you ever heard of the Gansfeld experiment? Gansfeld, sorry. Junpei nodded. Yeah, that was an experiment in telepathy, right? They put a pair of subjects in separate rooms, then they'd show one of them a picture and ask the other one what they saw. Interesting. I'm impressed. Yes, that is exactly correct. So, why'd you bring up the Gansfeld experiment? It was used to screen subjects for the Nonary project. The hospital in a remote town was affiliated with Cradle Pharmaceutical. Hongo used it to conduct experiments on visiting children in secret. This is the worst part. The fact that they used kids is just awful. Some of them, he found, had potential. He began to gather children that showed promise. Children that seemed as though they might be able to access the field. Of course, none of them volunteered. They were kidnapped. His face barely moved as he spoke. There were 9 pairs of siblings taken, for 18 children total. For reasons that were not fully understood at the time, each pair had 1 transmitter and 1 receiver. They were split perfectly. As such, the 18 children were split into 2 groups of 9. The children who were put in Group Q were the ones who excelled at transmitting. They were transferred to the mock experiment building known as Building Q in the Nevada desert. The children who excelled at receiving were put in Group A. The members of Group A were placed on the former hospital ship, Gigantic. From the experiments he had conducted so far, Hongo had learned the following. There are two things that can increase one's resonance with the fields. Oh, this is a very talky episode. The first is epiphany, the other is danger. Have you ever been faced with an especially difficult problem and thought about it very long and very hard until finally an answer suddenly appeared in your mind? It may seem obvious to say so, but that is what they meant by epiphany. The information obtained through that epiphany can be easily transmitted through the fields, where it can be easily interpreted. Adding danger to that equation allows for an even easier field access. Therefore, Hongo set up a number of puzzles across the Gigantic. The participants had to solve each puzzle before they could move to the next room. Of course, he hadn't forgotten to include danger. Ugh, douche. More specifically, he had detonated a bomb on the hull of the Gigantic. The children in Group A were forced to play the nonary game as the ship sunk. By forcing the children into a life or death situation, Hongo hoped to increase the likelihood of their tapping into the fields. Sounds very familiar to what we're going through, right? The children from Group Q, on the other hand, were confined to the mock experiment building, Building Q. Building Q duplicated the interior and the puzzles of the Gigantic exactly. Hongo explained the situation to the children in Group Q. Solve the puzzles you find throughout the rooms. When you solve them, transmit that information to the children in Group A. If you succeed, they will be able to solve the puzzles and escape. But if you fail, then the Gigantic will sink and your brothers and sisters will drown. You a-hole. I should have read that in his voice, but oh well. Do you know why the astronauts of Apollo 13 were able to return to Earth safely? It was because NASA had access to a replica of the Apollo 13 capsule. All of the equipment, the instruments, everything, all of it identical. NASA was able to replicate the situation the astronauts were facing. By putting themselves in the same situation, they attempted to solve the problems they knew the astronauts were experiencing. Once they had found solutions, they reported their findings to the men aboard the actual capsule. That was how they were able to return safely. It was the same with the Gigantic and Building Q. The children from Group Q had to use the power of epiphany to solve the puzzles they found and transmit what they learned through the fields. The children in Group A, however, had to access the fields to learn how they might advance to the next stage. That is the simplest explanation I can manage. Snake sounded defeated. His half-hearted attempt at derision served only to show how much the story had affected him. Just as Junpei was about to speak. Hey, Junpei! Thank God the tough story time is over. Snake, how much longer you two gonna sit around on those bony asses? He's so funny. Get down here already. Seven's voice echoed up from below. Snake took a deep breath and blinked rapidly as if just waking up from a long nap. He's right. Let's go, shall we? We don't have much time. We need to get out of here, and soon. Snake headed for the stairs, but Junpei put out an arm to stop him. Hold it. You gonna do a Phoenix, right? Hold it! No, I'm just kidding. Take that! No, I'm just kidding. Phoenix Wright. I haven't played it in so long. I have to find a day that when Smooth and I can record. I miss Phoenix Wright, kind of. You know? I've been watching Pharaoh and Skinny's LPs lately, but it's not enough. Okay. There's one more thing I want to ask you. Are you sure that there were 18 kids? Why? Well, I thought it was only 16. Oh, yes, that was what they said on the news, wasn't it? Yes, I have no doubt that 18 children were abducted and used in Hongo's experiment. After all, you couldn't exactly play a nonary game with any less, could you? Well, yeah, but... Are you saying that the news got it wrong? Yes, I am. There were 2 more children. However, they had no relatives that I'm aware of. I imagine no one filed a police report when they went missing. Oh, that's so sad. They were brother and sister, like Clover and I. The brother's name was Aoi. I'm just guessing that's how you pronounce it. This is one of those Japanese names that I actually cannot pronounce. Aoi, I think. The sister's name was... Her name was... Snake couldn't seem to bring himself to continue. It looked as if what he was about to say brought him great pain. Her name was Akane. What? I mean, yeah, there could be another Akane out there. That's a pretty common name in Japan. Yeah. No comment. That was the girl who died. Yeah. I'm tempted to leave this episode right here. So, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Thank you guys so much for watching.